Hello, Peter. This is going to be one of the most fun videos I've filmed in quite some time. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be ranking all of the Spider-Man movie villains. I'm just going to be talking about Spider-Man villains from the Raimi trilogy, the TASM movies, the MCU Spider-Man movies, and Spider-Verse. Before I give you guys my tier ranking, make sure to hit that like button, comment your tier ranking, or just ranking in general of these Spider-Man villains, who's your favorite, and make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my future Spider-Man videos and all my Marvel content that has been out lately. And I wanted to give you guys a warning that there could be some spoilers for Spider-Man No Way Home, so if you have not seen the movie and you want to be extra safe, make sure to go watch it and then come back here and watch this video. Without further ado, let's get into this tier list. So getting into this tier, we have the best of the best, great, good, meh, and bad. And again, these are all the Spider-Man movie villains. I might have left out some very minute ones from Spider-Verse, but I just want to talk about the main ones from that movie. So first up is the big bad himself from the No Way Home trailer, the big reveal at the end of that first trailer. Doc Ock, known as the villain of Spider-Man 2, played brilliantly by Alfred Molina, and he comes back in No Way Home, and spoiler alert, he actually is more of a good guy role here, as I predicted. This is the one prediction I got right for this movie. Peter actually creates something that allows the arms to be controlled by Doc Ock again, so he loses those voices in his head and he regains consciousness. He ends up helping out the Spider-Man at the end of the movie. So I'm gonna have to put Doc Ock in best of the best, because at his core, he's a really good guy and he's brilliant, but he just happens to fall victim to his life's work, having a little bit of a technological mishap, so he gotta be best of the best. Next up, we've got Electro, who, if you asked me my thoughts on this character before Spider-Man No Way Home, he might have been in the meh or bad category, but now I'm going to have to put Electro in the good category. I just think that Spider-Man No Way Home was able to really add another layer to him, and I think that might be because I didn't have to stare at a blue face the whole time. They actually let Jamie Foxx act and show emotion, so I think that his character is much more easy to root against in this film. But also at the same time, you still feel bad for Max, as he's always just been this guy who wants to fit in, and he doesn't want to be a nobody, so I kind of feel for him in that sense, and they flesh that out further here. He has some of the funnier moments in No Way Home as well, but he's also menacing as hell, and in a way, he kind of is the main villain. He's like the second villain, I'd say, right behind Norman in the film, but Electro, solid. Jamie Foxx kills it. Even in the TASM movies, when his character is more poorly written, I still kind of feel for him, and I really like what they did with him in this movie. His redesign is dope. Next, we've got Norman Osborn, aka Green Goblin. I've said this before No Way Home even came out. He's always been my favorite Spider-Man villain. Like, just the way Willem Dafoe is able to have so much fun in the role and be menacing one second, laugh out loud unintentionally another second. He is really great as Green Goblin, and I'd put him up there as one of the most iconic superhero villains of all time. I really believe that. He kicks Spider-Man's ass at the end of that first movie, and in No Way Home, he kicks even more ass, but more impressively, he eats some beatdowns in this movie. There's one shot in particular where Tom Holland's Peter Parker is sitting like on his shoulders and he's just wailing on his face, and Norman's just sitting there smiling and eating it up. That is one of my favorite shots in this entire movie, No Way Home. I gotta go best of the best with Norman, and to be honest with you, he's probably the best Spider-Man villain of all time. Next, we have the Green Goblin from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This character is just a side character for some action. I don't even think they really have any lines in the film. To be honest with you, I'm going bad with this version of the character. Just because Spider-Verse has so many villains, this one falls under the radar and is kind of lame. It's ironic that all the Green Goblins ended up lining up next to each other when I made this ranking. But next we have Green Goblin from TASM 2, a character that really didn't need to be in the movie, quite frankly. Harry Osborn is very much a subplot of that movie, so the fact that he comes in at the end and is responsible for Gwen Stacy's death is upsetting. And yes, it adds to a beautiful moment for Spider-Man's arc and coming full circle, and the ending of that movie has an emotional gut punch. But in reality, Electro is the only villain needed in this film. As he's introduced so early on, they just shoehorned in Green Goblin because they wanted to rush some things out for Sony, I think. And when he's actually Green Goblin, he's not intimidating, he's just ugly and hard to look at. Don't really care for this character at all. I gotta go bad with the TASM 2 Green Goblin. Next is an interesting one, as we have Harry Osborn when he is Goblin in Spider-Man 3. He obviously has a really great turnaround arc, and I'd say it's one of the more powerful arcs in all of Spider-Man films, as at the beginning of the movie, he really just wants to kill Spider-Man. However, when he's fighting Spidey, and then he ends up losing his memory once he knocks his head on like the dumpster when he falls, he forgets all of this, but it all comes back to him in a rush. And then Bully Maguire does what he does and bullies this character. But Bernard has a really great scene with Harry in the third movie, where he's like, I've lived in this house for quite some time and I've seen some things, and he kind of motivates him to do the right thing at the end. I truly do love Harry's arc and how he ends up fighting with Spidey at the end. So he goes from being villain to hero in this movie. Harry's always just been a conflicted, kind of angsty character. He gets his moment to shine in Spider-Man 3, and for that, I'm going great with Harry Osborn. Next, we have Kingpin from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. A really slept-on villain, I feel like, because in a sense, a lot of people might forget about it because Spider-Verse is animated, but Kingpin is a solid villain who you really feel for, especially in the third act when he ends up seeing Vanessa and his son and they kind of want nothing to do with him. You really just feel crushed for this guy and understand why he's so angry all the time and why he wants to kill Spider-Man, all these various things. I'm going to have to go great with Kingpin. He's such an intimidating villain, and he actually kills Peter Parker at the beginning of this movie by smashing him to death. That cements him as intimidating in my eyes. So next up is the Lizard, who is the villain in The Amazing Spider-Man, the first film, but also makes a triumphant return in Spider-Man No Way Home. If I'm being quite honest, this is my least favorite of the villains in Spider-Man No Way Home, just because he feels very sidelined. He's not very menacing, and he's very much the lamest of all of those villains when it comes to not only his abilities as a villain, but honestly just his reasoning. His motivations are the least interesting in my eyes, because everyone else has more of a personal reason to be there, or they're trying to make a turnaround, but Lizard is just there. Lizard's always just been fine. Like, it's nothing egregiously bad when he's on screen. I don't think he has a terrible motivation as a villain. It's just he's trying to grow back his limb, and then he ends up turning into a big lizard. So I guess I feel for him in a sense, but for that, I'm just going to go mad with Lizard. Nothing really crazy here, and I'm not impressed with him in No Way Home at all. Next, we have Mysterio, played by Jake Gyllenhaal. The man is having so much fun in the role. You got to give it to him because he usually does these Oscar films or these action movies, so he doesn't really get to do like a superhero, super villain movie. And he totally goes for it here, especially the scene where it's revealed that Mysterio is actually a villain once he receives the glasses from Peter. That's just such a fun acting scene. He's going for it, and he makes me laugh quite a bit in this movie when he's like, yeah, hi, honey. And if you look at No Way Home now, all of the things that he did, like revealing Peter's identity and making him out to be a villain, impact Peter's arc to this day. Like, that is really impactful. You can kind of view Far From Home through a different lens after watching No Way Home, and I have to really respect that. I honestly am going to put Mysterio in the great category. I know a lot of people complain that he's just a Tony Stark screwed me villain yet again, but he really does end up beefing with Peter by the end of this movie, and he's crucial to Peter Parker's arc in the MCU. Next, we have Prowler from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This is one of the more interesting twists in the film, as we find out this is actually Miles' uncle. So I really do have to give him to that because that's an emotional gut punch when he ends up dying in front of Miles. I'm gonna go good with Prowler. I think that he's got some really good moments in the film. It's not like he's a terrible person. He just makes some poor choices and mistakes. So he's not like a full-fledged villain in my eyes, but he's still villainous, and he's associated with Kingpin and all those other people. So next we have Rhino, who is barely even in any of these movies. He's maybe in TASM 2 for 5 minutes, and you see a silhouette of him in the sky in No Way Home. So this character doesn't have much to go off of. I have to go bad, genuinely. I mean, I don't even know how many lines this character has, but it's not a lot, so I can't really justify putting them any higher than bad. Yes, the Rhino design's kind of dope, and I like the ending shot of TASM 2. Maybe if we see Paul Giamatti come back down the road, that'd be cool. I just can't see this character going any higher. Next, we have Sandman, who I'm very pleased came back for No Way Home, because I've always been an advocate of this character, and I think if he was the central villain of Spider-Man 3, that movie would be greatly enhanced. I've always said that. I really love the redesign, too. Like, gosh, it was so sick to see him as just a normal dude, but fully sand, and he actually had some pretty great comedic moments, like when he sits on Happy's couch and gets dirt on it, or when Tom Holland Spider-Man, like, claps his hand and his hand just goes flying. Seeing that conflict within the character, too, as he made amends with Peter Parker at the end of Spider-Man 3, but then he feels kind of betrayed as he sees this other Spider-Man who's not his Peter. That kind of made sense for me, for him to be questioning all this and have a villainous role. I do like what they did with Sandman here. He didn't have many moments, but it was cool to see him kind of fighting Electro at first, and then him trying to figure out this new universe he's in. So I'm honestly going to go great with Sandman because, again, I think he's well utilized in No Way Home, but he's also the heart and soul of Spider-Man 3, especially his redemption arc when he has that scene with Peter where Peter forgives him for killing Uncle Ben. It's really powerful stuff. Next, we have Scorpion from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This villain is fine. I like the design more than the Green Goblin design when it comes to their characters in this movie. There's only one real standout villain in this movie for me, though, and that is Kingpin. So if I'm being honest, I'm probably going to have to go bad with Scorpion. It's nothing against the character of Scorpion, like in the lore of Marvel. I actually hope we get to see them live action because obviously he's teased in the Homecoming post-credit scene, and I like him a lot in the video games. But in this movie, not a lot to go off of. Very one-note, very generic. Looks cool. Not a lot to work off of. Next, we have Doc Ock from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And I really am a big fan of this twist because I did not see it coming at all. I also like how this character kind of leads on our Spider-Men when they're breaking into the facility trying to get the information. I'm gonna go good with Doc Ock from this movie. I think that she's like the number 2 in this movie, I would say, when it comes to being a villain. I think the twist honestly just puts this character in good because that shocked me. Next is Eddie Brock / Venom from Spider-Man 3, one of the most unintentionally hilarious characters in cinema. The The scene where he goes to the church and prays to God to kill Peter Parker, it's truly hilarious. I just don't know why this character was shoehorned into the movie, because Sandman was a fine villain as well as the whole Harry arc. So they kind of just had to throw it in there because I know that the studio wanted Venom and Raimi didn't, so it's kind of a big shit show. I'm going to put Venom in meh, just because of how funny Eddie Brock can be unintentionally, and the whole humiliation bit just gets me. But simply put, he's just not a good villain. And last but certainly not least is going to be Vulture from Spider-Man Homecoming. I've said this line multiple times in my videos recently, but in a world without Thanos, I think Vulture is the best MCU villain. He is a family man who will do whatever it takes to look out for his family, and he's a part of one of the best twists in the MCU. I'll never get over the moment in theaters when Peter Parker opens that door and he goes, "You must be Peter." It gets me every damn time. It gives me chills. That's when the movie gets real. Like, Peter has to make some decisions. He has to leave his homecoming date behind and his friends and take care of Spider-Man business, and Peter Parker having to make sacrifices in order to be Spider-Man and protect people is a core element of his character. I'm glad they made that an integral part of the last half of Homecoming. And so for that reason, I have to go best of the best with Michael Keaton's Vulture. Not only does he give a great performance, but he's menacing as hell, and he's very much just a family man. You really feel for him, and they set him up in the opening scene of the movie. I love Vulture, and he's arguably the best MCU villain. So that's going to do it for my ranking of all the Spider-Man movie villains. Make sure to drop yours in the comment down below. Where would you place these characters in their different tiers? Do you agree with my list? Do you disagree? Let's talk about it in the comments. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my future Marvel content, and make sure to check out all of my Spider-Man content that's been coming out lately. Have a ton of videos planned as we approach the end of the year. The Hawkeye finale is right around the corner, but that's going to do it. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.